"Mom, my head hurts again," Jake whispered, squinting at his homework from inches away. My heart clenched as I watched him struggle with a simple math worksheet, his nose practically touching the paper. "Just a little longer, honey," I said, adjusting the desk lamp to its brightest setting. "Maybe if we move it closer to the light." But I knew it wasn't about the lighting. The teacher's notes had become increasingly concerned. Jake was squinting at the board, missing instructions, and falling behind in reading. The school nurse had recommended an immediate eye exam, but that required something we apparently couldn't afford: money. "We're on a strict budget, Amanda," David had said last week, barely looking up from his phone, probably texting his friends about their upcoming Vegas trip. "Kids just want glasses because their friends have them. Remember when you wanted braces because Tommy got them?" "Tommy needed braces for medical reasons," I'd argued. "And Jake needs glasses because he can't see. He sits too close to that damn TV," David had dismissed. "Make him sit back and he'll be fine." The TV that Jake had to sit close to because he couldn't see it otherwise. The same TV David had no problem buying last year for his precious football games with the boys. My phone buzzed, a notification from our joint account I'd set up to track David's spending. Another charge from Sports Bar and Grill, $175. The fourth quick drink with the guys this week. But somehow $350 for our son's eye exam was breaking the bank. "Can I take a break?" Jake asked, rubbing his temples. "Maybe listen to my audiobooks instead." The audiobooks I'd secretly subscribed to when reading became too painful for him. Another unnecessary expense, according to David, who spent more on beer and wings in one night than a month's subscription cost. "Of course, sweetheart." I kissed his forehead, feeling the tension there. "I'll make you some chamomile tea for your head." In the kitchen, I pulled out my hidden notebook, the one where I'd been tracking every dime David spent on himself versus our family's needs. 3 months of bar tabs, sports betting, golf games, and guys' nights added up to more than our monthly mortgage payment. Meanwhile, Jake wore shoes a size too small because kids' feet grow too fast to waste money on new ones every few months. My phone buzzed again, this time with an email from Jake's teacher. Jake had another difficult day. He became frustrated during reading time and said his head hurt too much to continue. "Please let me know if you've scheduled that eye appointment we discussed." I was composing a response when David walked in, reeking of beer and cigarettes. Another habit he picked up during his boys' nights that we supposedly couldn't afford. "Great news," he announced, dropping his keys on the counter. "Steve's bachelor party is all set. Vegas, baby." "How much?" I asked quietly, though I'd already seen the charge notification. "Don't start, Amanda," he warned, his good mood evaporating. "It's a once-in-a-lifetime thing. Steve's getting married." "For the third time," I muttered. "And Jake's eyes are a lifetime thing." "Not this again," David groaned. "He's fine. You're just looking for problems because your mom wore glasses as a kid." My mother, who lost vision in one eye because her family couldn't afford early intervention. The story I told David when we first discussed Jake's symptoms, which he'd apparently filed away as ammunition. "The school nurse says." "The school nurse wants us to waste money on unnecessary medical bills," he cut me off. "Like that ADHD testing they wanted last year. The testing that had actually revealed Jake's growing vision problems, which David had dismissed as teacher overreach. Speaking of bills," he continued, pulling out his phone. "The guys want to do a golf weekend next month. Team building for work, you know." "Team building?" I echoed. "You're a real estate agent. You work alone." "Networking," he corrected smoothly. "It's important for my career." Like the networking that had put us $3,000 in credit card debt from last year's essential fishing trip with his college buddies. "Jake needs glasses," I said firmly. The teacher sent another email. "He can't see the board, he can't read properly, and he has constant headaches." "Kids get headaches," David shrugged. "I had them all the time as a kid." "Did you also have to sit 2 feet from the TV to see it?" "That's because you let him play too many video games. He listens to audiobooks because reading hurts his eyes." David's face darkened. The look I'd learned meant the discussion was over, at least in his mind. "We're not spending hundreds of dollars because our kid wants to copy his friends." End of discussion. Now about the golf weekend. I turned away, fighting back tears of frustration. In the living room, Jake had fallen asleep on the couch, his audiobook playing softly, his homework abandoned on the table. My phone buzzed one more time, a reminder about my secret appointment with a family lawyer next week. The consultation fee paid for by the money I'd been skimming from my grocery budget, saving a little each time David complained about the cost of fresh vegetables while spending $50 on bar nuts with the boys. David's voice carried from the kitchen as he called his friends, planning their Vegas debauchery. "Yeah, man, got the hotel suite booked. Top shelf everything. Amanda doesn't understand, but you guys get it." I looked at Jake's peaceful sleeping face, then at the notebook documenting months of his father's misplaced priorities. The Vegas charges had been the last straw, but the story they told went back much further. Opening my laptop, I pulled up the spreadsheet I'd been building. Every bar tab, every golf game, every boys' night expense, compared against denied family necessities. Next to it, I opened a new document and began typing. "Dear Mrs. Harrison, thank you for your email about Jake's difficulties in class. I want to inform you that Jake will be absent next Tuesday for an eye examination. His father may tell you we can't afford it, but as his mother, I've found a way. Some things, like our children's health, are worth fighting for." The eye doctor's office was bright and welcoming, nothing like the grim medical experiences David had predicted would traumatize our son. Jake sat in the examination chair, fascinated by the equipment. "How did you get the money, Mom?" he whispered while we waited. "Did Dad finally say yes?" "Mom found a way," I answered, thinking of the side job I'd taken doing virtual bookkeeping, skills I'd learned while tracking David's essential expenses. The door opened and Dr. Marshall entered with a warm smile. An hour later, we had our answer. Jake needed glasses badly. His prescription was significant, explaining the headaches and learning difficulties. "I'm actually concerned this wasn't caught sooner," Dr. Marshall said, reviewing the results. "This level of vision impairment doesn't happen overnight." I thought of all the months of David's dismissals, of Jake's struggles, of tightening our belts, while David loosened his for another round of drinks. My phone buzzed. A series of charges from Las Vegas. David's bachelor party weekend was in full swing. $200 at a steakhouse, $300 at a club, $150 for a poker tournament buy-in. Each notification felt like a vindication of my decision to take matters into my own hands. "Can I pick any frames?" Jake asked, eyes wide at the display of options. Within reason, I smiled, knowing my secret bookkeeping job would cover it. "Let's find something durable." While Jake tried on frames, I checked my email. The family lawyer had sent the preliminary paperwork along with a note. "The financial documentation you provided is compelling. Your husband's pattern of prioritizing personal entertainment over family medical needs will be relevant." "Mom, look," Jake called out. He'd chosen simple blue frames that suited his face perfectly. "Everything's so clear in these." The total came to $425. Less than David had spent on just the hotel room in Vegas. I paid with my private credit card, the one David didn't know about, funded by my hidden income. As we left the office, Jake wearing his new glasses, my phone lit up with a FaceTime call from David. "Where are you?" he demanded, the sounds of a casino evident in the background. I tried calling the house. Getting Jake's eyes checked, I replied calmly. "He has his glasses now." David's face reddened. "We discussed this. You went behind my back and spent less than half of what you've spent in Vegas so far." I finished. "Yes, I did. That money was your priority," I cut in. Just like the golf weekends, the bar tabs, and the poker nights were priorities. I made our son's vision a priority. "Where did you even get the money?" he demanded. "The same place you got your Vegas money. I earned it." Jake tugged at my sleeve. "Mom, everything looks so different. I can read the street signs." David fell silent, perhaps finally hearing what he'd been dismissing for months. "We'll discuss this when I get back," he said at last, his tone promising consequences. "Yes, we will," I agreed, thinking of the lawyer's paperwork waiting in my email. "We'll discuss quite a lot." After hanging up, I took Jake for ice cream, his first time reading a menu board without squinting. His face lit up with each new discovery. Leaves on trees, text on billboards, details he'd been missing all this time. My phone buzzed again. More Vegas charges. David was apparently drowning his anger in expensive bottles at a nightclub. "Mom?" Jake asked, looking at me clearly through his new glasses. Is Dad mad about the money? I thought carefully about my answer. Dad and I have different ideas about what's important. Sometimes grown-ups disagree about these things. Like how he says his golf clubs were important but my headphones for audiobooks weren't. Out of the mouths of babes. Something like that. My head doesn't hurt anymore, he said, returning to his ice cream. And I can see everything now. Another notification. David had just spent $200 on cigars. The same David who'd said $425 for glasses was throwing money away. Opening my photos, I took a picture of Jake happily reading the dessert menu, his first time doing so without struggle. I sent it to David with a simple message. This is what priority looks like. Then I forwarded the same photo to my lawyer, along with screenshots of David's Vegas spending spree. The contrast between a child's medical needs and a bachelor party budget told its own story. Can we go to the library? Jake asked. I want to try reading a real book now. Of course, I smiled, watching him gather his things without bumping into the table for the first time in months. My phone buzzed one last time, a text from David. We'll talk about this financial betrayal when I get home. I looked at Jake, seeing clearly now myself. Yes, I typed back, we will. And we'll both be seeing things very differently. 3 days after David returned from Vegas, I sat in our kitchen watching Jake read his first chapter book without headaches. The divorce papers lay on the counter beside me, next to printouts of David's Vegas charges, now totaling over $2,000. You're really going through with this? David asked, his hangover from the bachelor party weekend still lingering in his voice. Over a pair of glasses? No, I replied, sliding the financial records toward him. Over years of priorities that put your son's basic needs last. Jake looked up from his book, his new glasses catching a morning light. Dad, want to see me read? I can do whole pages now. David flinched, perhaps finally seeing what his choices had cost, not just in dollars, but in moments lost to his son's preventable struggles. I had to maintain certain appearances for work, he started, but I cut him off. Your son had to maintain straight as to keep his scholarship at the academy, I countered. Hard to do when you can't see the board. My phone buzzed, an email from Jake's teacher. Remarkable improvement in class participation this week. Jake read aloud voluntarily for the first time this year. I showed David the message. This is what your Vegas money bought, except I paid for it. With money you hid from me, he accused. Like the money you hid in your work expenses account. I pushed another printout toward him, his secret credit card statements I discovered during my bookkeeping job. The one you used for poker nights while Jake used audiobooks because reading hurt too much. The silence stretched between us, broken only by the sound of Jake turning pages. A simple act that had been painful just days ago. I'm his father, David finally said. I get to make these decisions. Not anymore, I replied, pushing the divorce papers forward. Now you get to make alimony payments that will cover his medical needs, all of them. You can't prove. I can prove every drink you bought while denying him glasses, every golf game you played while he struggled to read. Every dollar you spent in Vegas while he had headaches. My phone buzzed again. Jake's teacher sending a video of him reading to the class, standing confident at the podium, no squinting, no headaches. Your son couldn't see, I said quietly, but I saw everything. David stared at the papers, at the financial records, at Jake reading comfortably for the first time in months. I didn't realize, he started. No, I agreed. You didn't want to see it either. Jake closed his book, beaming with accomplishment. Mom, can we go to the bookstore? Miss Turner gave me a reading list. Of course, I smiled, gathering my keys and the divorce papers. Dad and I just need to finish some paperwork. David watched as Jake easily navigated around furniture he used to bump into, reading street signs through the window that had been just blurs before. The glasses, he said softly. They really made that much difference. Everything makes a difference when you see it clearly, I replied, sliding him a pen. Your signature goes on the marked lines. As David signed the papers that would end our marriage but begin Jake's fully sighted life, I thought about vision, not just the kind corrected by glasses, but the kind that lets you see what truly matters. I'll pay for the glasses, David offered, too late. You already did, I answered. Every time you chose a boy's night over his needs, you pay for this moment. Jake waited by the door, his new glasses helping him read the clock. Mom, the bookstore closes in an hour. Coming, honey. I gathered the signed papers, leaving David with his Vegas receipts and missed opportunities. Outside, Jake looked up at the trees, seeing individual leaves instead of green blurs. Everything's so clear now, he marveled. Yes, I agreed, thinking of the clarity that comes with choosing what really matters. Yes, it is. I stared at the credit card notification on my phone, my hands shaking as I read the charge again. Aspen Ridge Luxury Spa and Resort, $5,000. The same hands that had just finished sewing patches onto our 7-year-old Tommy's worn-out winter coat from last year. Mommy, it's still too small, Emma, our 5-year-old, said from the doorway, drowning in her brother's patched-up hand-me-down coat from 2 seasons ago. Behind her, 3-year-old Lucy wore a coat we found in a church donation bin, the zipper broken and the sleeves frayed. I know, baby, I whispered, quickly wiping my eyes before they could see the tears. We'll figure something out. The irony wasn't lost on me. Just yesterday, Mike had stood in our kitchen, waving our household budget spreadsheet like a weapon. Sarah, we've talked about this. We can't afford new winter coats right now. The kids have perfectly good ones from last year. They've outgrown them, Mike, I'd argued, showing him how Tommy's wrists stuck out 3 inches from his sleeves. It's going to be below freezing next week. I only need $200. $200? He'd scoffed, straightening his designer tie, the one his sister Jessica had bought him for party. That's groceries for 2 weeks. Besides, there's always Goodwill. Now looking at the spa resort charge, I felt something inside me finally snap. After 8 years of marriage, I'd become an expert at stretching dollars, at making do, at putting the kids' needs first. Meanwhile, Mike and his sister maintained their weekly sibling dinner dates at upscale restaurants, their matching luxury car leases, their joint country club membership, all while I clipped coupons and shopped at discount stores. Mommy, Emma tugged at my sleeve. Can we have hot chocolate? I'm cold. Of course, sweetie. I forced a smile, leading them to the kitchen. As I heated milk on the stove, no fancy coffee maker in this house. Despite Mike's 6-figure salary, my phone buzzed with another notification. Can't wait for my birthday spa weekend. Best brother ever. Jessica's Instagram post showed her perfectly manicured hand holding up the gift certificate, our joint bank account balance dropping by the minute in the background. The same bank account Mike had given me grief over when I'd spent $30 on art supplies for the kids' homework projects last month. As the children sipped their hot chocolate, I opened my laptop and checked my secret Etsy shop's balance. What had started as a desperate attempt to earn extra money by selling handmade children's clothes had grown into a steady stream of income, one Mike knew nothing about. The shop now brought in enough to cover groceries and basic necessities, which was fortunate since Mike's budget for household expenses hadn't increased in 3 years, despite his 2 promotions. Look, Mommy, Lucy held up her drawing. It's us in the snow. The crayon figures wore bright-colored coats, red for Tommy, purple for Emma, pink for Lucy, dreams drawn in Crayola, while their father spent their coat money on his sister's spa weekend. My phone buzzed again. A message from Mike, working late tonight, having dinner with Jess to finalize her birthday weekend plans. Don't wait up. Of course he was. Their Thursday dinner tradition hadn't been broken once in 8 years, not even when Tommy had the flu or when I was in labor with Lucy. But God forbid I ask for money for essential winter clothes. I checked my Etsy balance again. $1,800. Not just from clothes now, but from the financial literacy blog I'd started 6 months ago, teaching other mothers how to build emergency funds without their controlling spouses knowing. The irony wasn't lost on me. Mommy, can we play outside when it snows? Emma asked, her face bright with childhood excitement. Yeah, can we build a snowman? Tommy chimed in, pulling his too small coat tighter around himself. I looked at my 3 children, their hopeful faces glowing in the afternoon light, and made a decision. Opening my laptop again, I pulled up my secret email account, the one I created when I first started suspecting things weren't right with our marriage. Dear Mr. Patterson, I typed to my lawyer, I'd like to proceed with filing those papers we discussed. The doorbell rang, interrupting my typing. Through the front window, I saw Jessica's Mercedes parked in our driveway, my husband's sister clutching shopping bags from the designer stores at the mall. Auntie Jessica, the kids' choras, running to the door. My favorite munchkins, Jessica breezed in, her cashmere coat probably worth more than our monthly grocery budget. I brought presents. I watched as she distributed expensive toys, the kind I'd been told we couldn't afford for party. The kind that made my carefully sewn homemade gifts look shabby in comparison. Sarah, she air kissed my cheek, you look tired. You really should try that new spa treatment I told you about. Works wonders for stress. I'll keep that in mind, I replied, thinking of the spa weekend she'd be enjoying courtesy of our family budget. Oh, and Mike wanted me to tell you he's ordered dinner for us at La Maison tonight. Jessica continued, oblivious to the irony. Brother-sister tradition, you know how it is. He said not to worry about cooking for him. I hadn't cooked dinner for Mike in months. He was always either working late or out with Jessica. The kids and I had our own tradition now, simple, healthy meals I could afford on my secret income, followed by homework help and bedtime stories. The kids' coats look a bit worn, Jessica observed with practiced concern. You really should let Mike know they need new ones. He's so generous, I'm sure he'd. He knows, I cut her off, my voice steady. He suggested goodwill. Jessica's perfect features crinkled in confusion. But surely, I mean with his new promotion. The kids are getting new coats tomorrow, I said firmly, thinking of my Etsy balance. And some other things are changing too. Oh, Jessica perked up. Is Mike finally letting you redo the kitchen like I suggested? I smiled, thinking of the documentation hidden in my laptop, the separate bank account I'd opened, the apartment I'd already looked at. Something like that. Changes are definitely coming. As Jessica launched into a detailed description of the spa treatments awaiting her in Aspen, I watched my children playing with their new toys, still wearing their patched and borrowed coats. By this time next week, they'd have new coats, and their mother would have a new life planned, one where financial abuse couldn't masquerade as budgeting. Jessica, I interrupted her spa monologue, would you like some hot chocolate? The kids and I were just having some. Oh no, she laughed, patting her flat stomach. Do you know how many calories are in that? Besides, Mike and I are trying this amazing new juice cleanse. I poured myself another cup of hot chocolate, dropping in the mini marshmallows my children loved. Some luxuries I'd learned cost less than $2 a bag. And some costs, like staying in a marriage where children's needs came last, were too high to pay anymore. The next morning, while Mike was at his regular Saturday golf game with Jessica, I took the kids shopping, not to Goodwill, but to the department store where my Etsy earnings could buy them proper winter gear. Can I really get the blue one? Tommy asked in disbelief, trying on a down-filled coat that actually covered his wrists. Yes, we thought. I helped Emma into a purple puffer jacket while Lucy twirled in her new pink coat, complete with working zippers and intact sleeves. My phone buzzed repeatedly, notifications from the joint account. Mike was at the country club with Jessica, the charges rolling in, $200 for green fees, $180 for brunch, $150 for the pro shop. Mommy, look. Emma spread her arms, making snow angels in the air. I'm so warm. The total for 3 high-quality winter coats, plus hats, gloves, and boots came to $485. Less than a tenth of Jessica's spa weekend, but it bought something priceless. My children's warmth and their mother's awakening. When we got home, Mike's Tesla was in the driveway. He stood in the kitchen, holding shopping bags from the pro shop. Where were you? He demanded, then noticed the store bags. What's this? Winter coats, I replied calmly. The kids needed them. His face darkened. We discussed this, Sarah. We can't afford. Like we can't afford the $5,000 you spent on Jessica's spa weekend. The color drained from his face. That's different. It's her 30th birthday. And these are your children's warm bodies. I set my phone on the counter, screenshots of the credit card charges displayed. Funny how there's always money for Jessica, but never for the kids. I earned that money, he snapped, and Jessica deserves. A luxury spa weekend while your children wear donated coats? I finished. Tell me, Mike, how does that math work in your head? You don't understand family obligations, he said, his voice taking on that condescending tone I'd grown to hate. Jessica and I have a very special sibling bond. Yes, I know. I've heard it for 8 years. I opened my laptop. Just like I've heard about budgets and sacrifices and living within our means. Except those rules only seem to apply to me and the kids. Where did you get the money for those coats? He demanded. I pulled up my Etsy shop, then my blog, then my separate bank account. I earned it, every dollar. While you and Jessica were having your weekly dinner dates, I was building a business. While you were golfing, I was teaching other women how to escape financial control. You went behind my back. His voice rose. You violated our agreement about asking permission to spend money on necessities, while you spend thousands on your sister's whims. I laughed, but there was no humor in it. No, Mike, I didn't violate our agreement. I woke up from it. Sarah, you're being dramatic. Jessica's birthday is more important than your children's basic needs. I opened another folder on my laptop. Mr. Patterson, my lawyer, finds that interesting, as does the documentation of every time you prioritize Jessica's wants over your family's needs. Mike's face went from angry to calculating. A lawyer? Don't be ridiculous. You can't afford. I can afford quite a bit, actually. I turned the laptop to show him my business earnings. Turns out when you're not spending $5,000 on spa weekends, money goes pretty far. You've been hiding money from me? His voice turned dangerous. That's financial independence, I corrected. Something you and Jessica seem to value, except when it comes to your wife and children. As if on cue, Jessica's Mercedes pulled into the driveway. She bounced in, carrying more shopping bags. Mike, they had the most amazing new golf clubs. Oh, she stopped, sensing the tension. Is everything okay? Show her the coats, kids, I said quietly. The children proudly modeled their new winter wear, their faces glowing with warmth and dignity. Oh, Jessica said again, different this time. Those look expensive. Less than your spa weekend, I noted. Less than today's golf game. Less than those clubs you're holding. Mike, Jessica turned to her brother. What's she talking about? Your brother spent $5,000 on your birthday spa weekend, I explained 2 days after telling me we couldn't afford $200 for children's coats. Jessica's perfectly maintained facade cracked slightly. But, you said the household budget was tight. That's why we didn't invite Sarah to our dinner dates. The household budget was whatever he decided it was, I said, pulling out more documentation. While the kids wore donated clothes, you two maintained quite a lifestyle. Mike stepped forward, his voice tight. Sarah, you're embarrassing yourself. No, Mike, you've done that quite thoroughly on your own. I handed Jessica a printed spreadsheet. Here's 8 years of your brother's spending. Left column is what he spent on you. Right column is what he allocated for his children's necessities. Jessica's manicured hand trembled as she read the numbers. Mike, this can't be right. You said. He said a lot of things, I finished. Just like he'll say a lot of things to the divorce court about why he prioritized his sister's spa weekends over his children's winter coats. The room fell silent except for the rustle of new coat material as the kids shifted uncertainly. Mommy? Lucy's small voice cut through the tension. Can we still play in the snow when it comes? I looked at my children in their new coats, then at my husband and his sister with their matching expressions of disbelief that their carefully maintained power dynamic was crumbling. Yes, baby, I smiled. We can play in the snow. In fact, we're going to be playing in a lot of new places soon. 6 months later, I watched from our new apartment window as snow fell over the city. Inside, the kids played in their warm winter gear, last season's coats now properly passed down through a local charity, my suggestion for families who truly needed them. Dinner's ready. I called setting out the meal I prepared with our now comfortable grocery budget. No more stretching dollars until they screamed. Can we have hot chocolate after? Tommy asked, helping his sisters into their seats, a new family tradition we'd established in our new life. Of course, I smiled, thinking of how much had changed since that day in the kitchen with Mike and Jessica. The divorce proceedings had been enlightening for everyone involved. Jessica, confronted with years of documented financial disparity, had finally seen her brother clearly. The country club membership was canceled. By her. The matching luxury cars returned. The weekly sibling dinners replaced with family therapy sessions she now paid for herself. My phone buzzed with an Etsy notification. Another order for my increasingly popular children's clothing line. The business that had started as survival had blossomed into success. Featured in parenting magazines and financial empowerment blogs. Miss Thompson from next door invited us to build a snowman tomorrow. Emma announced, properly warm in her new winter gear. Can we go? Yes, after your morning classes, I answered, thinking of the proper prep school they now attended, funded by my business earnings, not dependent on their father's conditional generosity. Mike had fought the divorce, of course, claimed I was unstable for hiding money, manipulative for documenting his spending. But financial abuse leaves a paper trail, and his priorities were clear in every spreadsheet, every bank statement, every credit card bill. The judge had been particularly interested in the contrast between children's necessities and luxury spa weekends. Mommy, look. Lucy held up her drawing. Our new apartment, snow falling, 3 children in colorful coats building a snowman. No more stick figures and borrowed jackets. My phone buzzed again, an email from my publisher. The book deal was final. Financial freedom. A mother's guide to breaking free from economic abuse. The advance would pay for the kids' college funds. The doorbell rang. Jessica, surprisingly alone. Since the divorce, she'd been working with a therapist to understand her role in the family dynamics. I brought hot chocolate, she said quietly, holding up a grocery bag. The good kind with real chocolate and marshmallows. The kids ran to hug their aunt, a different aunt now, one who brought thoughtful, modest gifts and spent time rather than money. Mike signed the final papers, she told me while the children enjoyed their cocoa. He's getting help. Finally. I nodded, remembering the man who thought designer ties were essential, but children's coats were luxuries. I'm sorry, Jessica said, not for the first time. I should have seen it. All those years. We all see what we're ready to see, I replied, watching my children play in their warm clothes, in their safe home, with their future secure. Jessica pulled out an envelope. The spa weekend refund. I canceled it. It should go to the kids' fund. Keep it, I said. Put it toward your therapy. Breaking cycles takes resources. Through the window, snow continued to fall. Somewhere across town, Mike was probably calculating his reduced budget, learning to live without the control that had once defined him. His weekly golf games replaced with supervised visitation, his sibling dinners with co-parenting classes. Your blog helped Mrs. Chen next door leave her husband, Jessica mentioned. I saw her yesterday, shopping for her kids. Actually shopping, not just looking. I smiled, thinking of all the women finding their strength, their financial independence, their way out. We're building snowmen tomorrow, Lucy told her aunt. Real ones, not just drawings. With real warm gloves, Hema added, holding up her mittened hands. Jessica blinked back tears, understanding the layers of meaning in a child's simple statement. As the evening wound down, I packed thermoses of hot chocolate for tomorrow's snow play. No more hiding money in coffee tins, no more stretching meals to cover expenses, no more choosing between warmth and submission. Next winter, Jessica said as she prepared to leave, let me take the kids shopping for their coats. As their aunt, not as what I was before. I looked at my children, warm and safe, free from the burden of adult financial games. We'll see. Right now, they have everything they need. And as the snow fell outside our warm apartment, I thought about cycles broken, lessons learned, and the true cost of standing up for what matters. Sometimes, it takes a winter coat to expose the cold truth about the people we trust with our lives. My phone buzzed one last time, another woman reaching out through my blog, seeking warmth in her own winter of discontent. Tomorrow, I would help her find her way to spring. But tonight, we would drink hot chocolate and watch the snow fall, properly clothed in both winter gear and dignity. I stood in my corner office on the 50th floor, watching the sunset paint Manhattan's skyline in shades of gold. 25 years ago, I had cleaned offices like this one, studying business textbooks during my breaks, and dreaming of the day I would have my own empire. Now, as CEO of Global Ventures International, I was about to close the biggest acquisition of my career. My phone buzzed. Emily flashed across the screen, my daughter. The same daughter who had spent the last 3 months avoiding introducing me to her fiancé's family. Mom, her voice was tense. About tonight's dinner. I already knew what was coming. I had heard variations of this excuse for months. The Harringtons are very traditional. They summer in the Hamptons, winter in Aspen. Bradford's mother is on the board of practically every charity in New York. I just don't think. You don't think they'd understand having a mother who started from nothing. I finished for her, keeping my voice neutral. Could you just, maybe say you're working late? At the cleaning company? The irony almost made me laugh. I was indeed working late, but not scrubbing floors. I was finalizing the $2 billion acquisition of Harrington Hotels International, the very chain her future in-laws were so proud of frequenting. Of course, sweetheart, I said softly. If that's what you want. After hanging up, I looked at the documents on my desk. The Harrington hotel chain had been struggling silently for years, the prestigious name masking mounting debt. When my company offered to buy them out, they had jumped at the chance, though they had never met the CEO behind the offer. I had let my lawyers handle everything, knowing my daughter was dating Bradford Harrington. Ms. Sullivan? My assistant knocked gently. The Harringtons are waiting in the restaurant's private boardroom. Perfect timing. I gathered the contracts and stepped into my private elevator. The Grande, the flagship restaurant of their hotel chain, was about to become mine, along with everything else bearing the Harrington name. As I descended, I thought about Emily, my brilliant, beautiful daughter, who had somehow become ashamed of her roots, who would rather pretend her mother was still cleaning offices than admit she had been raised by a single mom who worked her way up from nothing. The private boardroom had a discreet entrance through the kitchen. As I walked through, I heard familiar voices from the main dining room. Really, Bradford, a cleaning lady's daughter? A woman's cultured voice dripped with disdain. I understand she's pretty, but think of the family name. Mother. Bradford's voice held a warning note. Emily's background doesn't matter. Does it matter? Another male voice, presumably Bradford Sr., scoffed. Do you know what people will say? The Harrington heir marrying someone whose mother scrubs toilets for a living? I paused in the kitchen doorway, watching the scene unfold. Emily sat at their table, her face flushed with shame, as her future in-laws dissected her worthiness. She hadn't even tried to defend me. I apologize for my mother's situation, she whispered. She's working late tonight cleaning offices. As she should, Mrs. Harrington sniffed. At least she knows her place. I had heard enough. I straightened my Armani suit and nodded to the matron, who immediately rushed to the Harrington's table. Mr. and Mrs. Harrington, your presence is requested in the private boardroom. The CEO of Global Ventures is ready to sign the acquisition papers. Mrs. Harrington's face lit up. Finally, Bradford, darling, come along. Let's meet the person saving our hotel chain from your father's unfortunate investments. I watched Emily's confusion as her future in-law stood. I didn't know the hotel was being sold, she said to Bradford. It's been kept very quiet, he mumbled. Family embarrassment and all that. Emily, dear, Mrs. Harrington's voice was sticky sweet. Perhaps you should wait here. This is rather above your background's understanding. I stepped back into the boardroom, setting my briefcase on the polished table. Through the one-way glass, I could see the main dining room. I watched as Emily sat alone at the table, looking small and lost. The door opened. Mr. Harrington entered first, followed by his wife and son. Their expressions shifted from confident to confused as they saw only me in the room. There must be some mistake, Mrs. Harrington said. We're here to meet the CEO of Global Ventures. I smiled, remembering all those nights cleaning offices while dreaming of moments like this. No mistake, Mrs. Harrington. I'm Catherine Sullivan, CEO and founder of Global Ventures International. I believe we're here to discuss my acquisition of your hotel chain. The color drained from their faces. Bradford Sr. started to sway slightly. But, Mrs. Harrington sputtered. You're a cleaning lady? I raised an eyebrow. I was, yes, 25 years ago. Now I own one of the largest hospitality conglomerates in the world, and in about 5 minutes, I'll own your hotel chain too. I opened my briefcase, removing the contracts. Though before we sign, perhaps we should discuss something even more important than business. I pressed the intercom. Please send in my daughter. The door opened again, and Emily stepped in. Her eyes widened as she took in the scene, her future in-laws frozen in shock, me behind the CEO's desk. Mom, her voice cracked. I don't understand. Sit down, sweetheart, I said gently. I think it's time we all had an honest conversation about backgrounds, worth, and what really matters in building a legacy. Mrs. Harrington collapsed into a chair, her perfectly manicured hand clutching her pearls. You're Emily's mother, the cleaning lady? The very same, I smiled. Though I believe we need to discuss your earlier comments about knowing my place. After all, I tapped the contracts. In about 5 minutes, I'll be your boss. The look on their faces was worth every moment of hiding my success from my daughter. Sometimes the best lessons about judging people's backgrounds come with a billion-dollar price tag. The silence in the boardroom was deafening. Emily stared at me as if she were seeing me for the first time, while Mrs. Harrington's complexion had gone from pale to almost green. "This is impossible," Bradford Sr. finally sputtered. "Our lawyers have been dealing with global ventures for months." "Yes," I nodded. "Through my legal team." I stayed in the background for obvious reasons. I glanced at Emily, who had sunk into a chair, tears forming in her eyes. "All this time," she whispered, "when I was telling them you were working late cleaning offices, I was actually working late running the company that was about to buy theirs." I kept my voice gentle. "Every time you made excuses for my absence, I was in meetings, managing acquisitions, building the empire you were so ashamed of." I wasn't ashamed. But her voice cracked on a lie. "Really?" Mrs. Harrington had found her voice again, though it trembled slightly. "Because you told us quite explicitly that your mother was a cleaning lady who couldn't possibly understand our social circle." "Like you understood it?" I interrupted, opening a folder. "Let's talk about understanding things, Mrs. Harrington. Like how your family has been mortgaging properties to cover mounting debt. How your husband's gambling habits have nearly bankrupted 3 hotels. How your son Bradford here has been embezzling from the company's accounts to cover his own expenses." Bradford Jr. went pale. "How did you—" "Due diligence," I said simply. "I know everything about my investments, including how you've been lying to Emily about your family's financial situation." Emily turned to Bradford, her eyes wide. "You told me your family was helping with the wedding costs." "They can't," I said softly. "They're broke, sweetheart. The Harrington name is worth millions, but their bank accounts tell a different story. That's why they're selling to me." Mrs. Harrington stood, straightening her designer jacket. "Now see here. Whatever you think you know, I know that you're 3 months away from bankruptcy," I cut in. "I know that your social circle has no idea how close you are to losing everything. And I know that while you were judging my daughter for her background, you were desperately hoping my company would save you from social ruin." The room fell silent again. Emily was looking between Bradford and his parents, realization dawning in her eyes. "The country club membership," she said slowly. "The Hamptons house. The private jet. None of it's really yours anymore, is it?" "Emily, darling," Mrs. Harrington tried to recover. "These are just temporary setbacks, which is why you're selling to my mother's company." Emily's voice had found its strength, while treating her like she was beneath you. I stood, walking around the desk. "The contracts are ready to sign. Once they do, Global Ventures will own controlling interest in Harrington Hotels. We'll keep the name. It still has value. But there will be changes." "Changes." Bradford Sr.'s voice was weak. "First, a complete audit of all accounts." I looked pointedly at Bradford Jr., who squirmed. "Second, a restructuring of management. And third," I paused, looking at my daughter, "a lesson in humility." "You can't do this," Mrs. Harrington's voice rose. "We'll find another buyer." "There are no other buyers," I said simply. "I made sure of that. You can sign, or you can face bankruptcy court next month. Your choice." Bradford Jr. stepped forward. "Emily, baby, we can explain." "Explain what?" Emily stood. "How you let me believe my mother wasn't good enough for your family. How you hid your own family's financial disasters while looking down on her." I think," I said quietly, "everyone here needs to reevaluate what makes someone good enough." Mrs. Harrington sank back into her chair. "What do you want from us?" "Want?" I smiled. "I want what any mother wants. I want my daughter to be proud of who she is and where she comes from. I want her to understand that true worth isn't about names or backgrounds. It's about integrity, hard work, and treating people with respect." I picked up the contracts. "So here's what's going to happen. You're going to sign these papers. You're going to apologize to my daughter for the lies and the pretense. And then we're going to have a very honest conversation about the future." Bradford Sr. reached for the papers with a shaking hand. "And if we sign? Then we move forward. Global Ventures will stabilize the company. We'll protect the Harrington name, though perhaps it's time that name stood for something more than just old money and empty pride." As the contracts were passed around for signatures, Emily came to stand beside me. "Mom, I'm so sorry. I was so stupid." I wrapped an arm around her shoulders. "No, sweetheart. You were just young and impressed by the wrong things. But now you know, real power isn't about showing off or putting others down. It's about knowing your worth and lifting others up." Mrs. Harrington signed the last page, looking defeated. "So what happens now?" I collected the contracts, handing them to my waiting lawyer. Now we order dinner." and we have a long overdue conversation about what really makes a family good enough. Emily squeezed my hand, and for the first time that evening, I saw my daughter, my real daughter, emerging from behind the society mask she had tried so hard to wear. The weeks following the acquisition changed everything. Emily broke off her engagement to Bradford, not because of his family's financial situation, but because, in her words, I finally saw who they really were and who I was becoming. The society pages buzzed with the news of Global Ventures' takeover of Harrington Hotels, though few knew the personal drama behind the business headlines. Mrs. Harrington's charity board positions quietly disappeared, and Bradford Jr. found himself working in hotel management, starting from the ground up, under my direct supervision. 1 month after the acquisition, I was in my office when Emily knocked on the door. She looked different, more like the daughter I had raised, less like the society princess she had tried to become. "Mom? Do you have a minute?" I gestured to the chair across from me. "Always for you." She sat down, fidgeting with her sleeve. "I've been thinking about everything. About how I treated you. About what I almost married into. We all make mistakes, sweetheart." "No," she shook her head. "This was more than a mistake. I was so caught up in trying to fit into their world that I forgot everything you taught me. About dignity, about real worth." I leaned forward. "And what have you learned?" "That I want to be like you," she said firmly. "Not just the successful CEO part, though that's incredible, but the part of you that never forgot where you came from. The part that treats everyone with respect, from the cleaning staff to the board members." I smiled, remembering my own journey. "Would you like to hear something interesting? Every year, I still spend 1 day cleaning offices." Her eyes widened. "What? Why?" "To remember, to stay grounded, and to remind myself that every person who works for me, at every level, deserves respect." Emily was quiet for a moment. "Can I join you next time?" "Of course." I paused. "But first, there's something else we need to discuss. How would you like to learn the family business, the real way, from the ground up?" Her face lit up. "Really?" "Really. Starting in hotel operations, then working your way through each department. No shortcuts, no special treatment, just like I did." She stood and came around the desk to hug me. "Thank you, Mom, for everything, for letting me make my mistakes, for being there when I finally saw the truth." "That's what mothers do," I said softly. "We wait, we watch, and we hope our children find their way back to what really matters." Later that evening, as we had dinner in my penthouse overlooking the city, Emily asked, "Whatever happened to Mrs. Harrington?" I smiled. "She's currently undergoing what I call perspective training. She's working as a hospitality coordinator in one of our hotels. It turns out she's actually quite good at it, now that she's learned to treat everyone with respect." "And Bradford?" "Learning hotel management from the ground up, including," I couldn't help but smirk, "cleaning duties." Emily laughed, then grew serious. "You know what's funny? I thought their world was so perfect, so elite, but it was all just smoke and mirrors." "Success without integrity is just an illusion," I said. "Real success comes from hard work, respect, and never forgetting where you came from." She raised her glass. "To backgrounds worth being proud of." I clinked my glass against hers. "And to daughters who find their way back to what matters." As we looked out over the city lights, I thought about the journey that had brought us here. From cleaning offices to owning them, from hiding my success to using it to teach valuable lessons. But the greatest success wasn't the buildings I owned or the empire I had built. It was sitting right across from me, finally understanding what real worth means. Sometimes the most valuable lessons come wrapped in difficult packages. Sometimes we have to let our children lose their way before they can truly find themselves. And sometimes, just sometimes, the best revenge against snobbery and prejudice isn't showing off your power. It's using it to teach others the very lessons they believed they were above learning. Emily and I went back to work the next day. She to her entry-level position in hotel operations, me to my CEO duties. But now we shared something beyond mother and daughter, beyond success and failure. We shared an understanding that true worth isn't found in social circles or bank accounts. It's found in the dignity with which we treat others, and the pride we take in staying true to who we really are. After all, the best background isn't the one you're born into. It's the one you build with your own hands, your own integrity, and your own unwavering sense of self-worth. I stood in the driveway of my Hampton Beach house, staring at what used to be my serene blue-gray cottage. Now it was a modernist white box with floor-to-ceiling windows and some sort of metal artwork on the front lawn. My phone buzzed with the text from Marcus Thompson, CEO of Sterling Industries, my son's boss. Looking forward to seeing my new summer home tomorrow. Hope the classic Hamptons charm is still intact. I closed my eyes and took a deep breath. The classic Hamptons charm had been exactly why Marcus bought the property. He'd fallen in love with its traditional shingled exterior and wrap-around porch during our private viewing 2 weeks ago. The sale had been quick and quiet, exactly as he'd wanted, to avoid office gossip about his new $8.5 million purchase. Mom, surprised, my son Michael's voice boomed from the front door. We've been waiting for you. I turned to see Michael and his wife, Amanda, standing proudly on what used to be my lovely wooden porch, now replaced with some sort of concrete platform. What have you done? I managed to ask. We fixed it up, Amanda beamed. We know you've been too busy with your consulting work to update this place, so we thought we'd surprise you. We spent the last 2 weeks making it perfect. Perfect. The word echoed in my head as I walked closer, noting every improvement they'd made. The charming window boxes, gone. The traditional shutters, replaced with motorized metal blinds. The warm cedar siding, covered in stark white paint. Come see inside. Michael grabbed my hand, pulling me through the front door. We used our savings to make it amazing. The interior was worse. My comfortable, beach-worn furniture had vanished, replaced with sleek, modern pieces that looked like they belonged in a Miami nightclub. The cozy kitchen with its blue cabinets and copper pots was now all stainless steel and white lacquer. We threw out all that old furniture, Amanda said proudly. This is much more current. Now we won't be embarrassed to have friends over. Your friends? I raised an eyebrow. Well, you hardly use this place anymore, Michael shrugged. We thought it could be a family vacation home, maybe even have some work retreats here, impress the boss. The irony was almost painful. How much did you spend on this? I asked quietly. About $300,000, Amanda beamed. We took out a home equity loan. But it's worth it. This place must be worth at least $1 million more now. I sank into one of their uncomfortable new chairs. And you did this without asking me? We wanted it to be a surprise. Michael spread his arms wide. And admit it, Mom, this place needed updating. It was so dated. It was exactly what the new owner wanted, I said softly. The room went silent. Amanda's smile froze on her face. What new owner? Michael's voice cracked. I sold the house 2 weeks ago, I said, watching their faces. To Marcus Thompson, your CEO. He's coming to see his new property tomorrow. Amanda grabbed the back of a chair for support. But we just spent our savings on someone else's house, I finished, without asking permission, without even checking if I still owned it. Mom, you can't be serious, Michael said, his face going pale. Why didn't you tell us? Why didn't you ask me before renovating my property? I countered. But Marcus Thompson? Amanda whispered. Michael's boss? He loved the traditional style, I said, the classic Hamptons charm, the exact look you just destroyed. Michael sank onto their new modernist sofa. Oh God. My boss is going to see what we did to his house. I'm going to get fired. We'll fix it, Amanda said desperately. We can put it back. I looked around at the gutted interior. In one day, with what money? You said you spent your savings. The reality of what they'd done was finally sinking in. Amanda started to cry, mascara running down her face. Michael looked like he might be sick. What were you thinking? I asked, not unkindly. Did it never occur to you that this was my property? That I might have plans of my own? We thought we were helping, Michael said weakly. Making it better. Better for who? I stood up and walked to the windows that used to have my grandmother's lace curtains. Better for you? Because you were embarrassed by my taste? Because you wanted to impress your friends? Mom, please, Michael said, desperate. You have to help us fix this. My whole career could be over. I turned to face them, these two people who had decided their judgment was better than mine, who had taken it upon themselves to erase 30 years of memories without even asking. Fix it? I echoed. Like you fixed my house? Amanda was sobbing now. Please, we'll do anything. We can't lose everything over this. I looked at my phone, at Marcus's text waiting for a response. I had exactly 18 hours before he arrived to see his new property, his specifically chosen, traditionally styled beach house that now looked like a contemporary art museum. Well, I said finally, I hope you're ready for a very long night. and an expensive lesson about respecting other people's property. The look of relief on their faces was premature. They had no idea what I had in mind for their redemption. I sat at what used to be my cozy breakfast nook, now transformed into some sort of minimalist eating station, and made 3 phone calls. The first was to Marcus, buying us 48 hours with a carefully worded message about final touches. The second was to James Parker, my contractor of 20 years. The third was to my bank. Here's what's going to happen, I said to Michael and Amanda, who sat across from me looking shell-shocked. James will be here in an hour with his crew. They'll work around the clock, but it's going to cost $500,000 to restore this house to its original condition. Amanda made a choking sound. 500,000? Custom millwork isn't cheap, I said coldly. Neither is replacing 100-year-old hardwood floors or rebuilding a period-correct porch. Everything you destroyed in 2 weeks of thoughtless renovation needs to be carefully restored. But we don't have that kind of money, Michael whispered. No, I agreed. You don't. Because you spent your savings destroying someone else's property. So here's the deal. I'll loan you the money with very specific conditions. They leaned forward eagerly. First, you'll both sign a promissory note. Second, you'll sell your city condo to pay back the initial $300,000 you wasted here, plus half of the restoration costs. Sell our condo? Amanda's voice rose. But where would we live? In the apartment above your mother's garage, I said flatly. The one you said was too basic last Christmas. It's amazing how affordable housing can suddenly become when you've destroyed your finances. Michael's face had gone from white to gray. Mom, please. I'm not finished, I continued. Third condition, you'll both spend the next year working with James's crew on his restoration projects. Unpaid, learning the value of the craftsmanship you so carelessly destroyed. But I have a job, Michael protested. Yes, a job you'll lose if your boss sees what you did to his house. Choose wisely, son. The next 48 hours were a blur of activity. James's crew worked miraculously fast, fueled by coffee and the promise of triple overtime. I watched as Michael and Amanda, still in their expensive clothes, helped haul out their modern furniture and strip away their designer paint. By hour 30, the exterior was back to its original cedar shingles. By hour 40, the handcrafted kitchen cabinets had been reinstalled. With 6 hours to go, the antique hardwood floors were being carefully relaid. I didn't know it took so much work, Michael said quietly, as we watched the craftsmen meticulously fitting pieces of wood together. When we ripped it up, it seemed so easy. Destruction usually is, I replied. It's the building, or rebuilding, that takes skill and care. Amanda sat on the porch steps, her designer dress covered in dust. We really thought we were making it better. More valuable. Value isn't always about being new or modern, I said. Sometimes it's about history, craftsmanship, and respect for what came before. Just as the crew finished the last touches, my phone buzzed. Marcus was 20 minutes away. Go clean up, I told Michael and Amanda. You should be here for this. They emerged from their old rooms, now restored to their original state, just as Marcus's car pulled up. I watched through the window as he stepped out, taking in the exterior. It's perfect, he breathed, walking up the porch steps. Exactly as I remembered it. I let him tour the house, noting every original feature with appreciation. Michael and Amanda trailed behind us, silent and pale. The craftsmanship is extraordinary, Marcus said, running his hand along the kitchen cabinets. You don't see work like this anymore. He turned to Michael, who looked like he might faint. You never mentioned your mother's beach house was such a gem, Thompson, though I suppose you don't get out here much. Actually, sir, Michael's voice shook slightly. They've been helping me prepare it for the sale, I interrupted smoothly. Learning to appreciate traditional craftsmanship, aren't you, Michael? He swallowed hard. Yes, very much so. After Marcus left, clutching the keys to his perfectly restored beach house, Michael and Amanda slumped onto the porch steps. Why did you cover for us? Amanda asked quietly. Because sometimes the lesson is more important than the punishment, I replied. You'll spend the next year learning the value of what you nearly destroyed. That's worth more than any momentary satisfaction I might get from exposing your mistake. Michael looked up at me. The apartment above Mom's garage. Does that offer still stand? I nodded. It's not modern, it's not impressive, but it's a place to live while you rebuild your savings and hopefully your judgment. As they left to begin packing up their condo, I stood on the porch of the house I no longer owned, thinking about lessons learned and wisdom earned. Sometimes the most expensive mistakes turn out to be the most valuable teachers. 1 year later, I sat in my garden, watching Michael and Amanda pull up in their now familiar work truck. They looked different, tanned, wearing worn jeans and work boots instead of designer clothes. James's restoration crew had changed them in ways I hadn't expected. "Mom," Michael called out, carrying a small wooden box. "We wanted to show you something." They sat down at my patio table, and Amanda carefully opened the box. Inside was a miniature replica of my old beach house, crafted with incredible detail. "We made it," she said softly. "Every shingle, every window frame, James taught us how." I picked it up, noting the tiny copper gutters and perfectly scaled porch railings. "It's beautiful." "We didn't understand before," Michael said, watching me examine their work. "The value of things. We thought newer meant better, modern meant more valuable. And now," Amanda smiled, her first genuine smile in months. "Now we know that every piece of wood has a story. Every technique passed down through generations has meaning." The past year had been hard for them, living above Amanda's mother's garage, working long hours with the restoration crew, selling most of their designer possessions to pay back the loan. But something unexpected had happened along the way. "James offered us partnerships," Michael said, "in his restoration business." I raised an eyebrow. "What about your corporate job?" "I quit last month," he replied. "Turns out I'm better with my hands than with spreadsheets, and honestly, I'm happier." Amanda nodded. "We both are. We're making less money," but she touched the miniature house gently. "We're building something real." "Speaking of building," I said, pulling out an envelope, "I have something for you." They opened it to find a deed. Their eyes widened as they read. "Mom, this is the lot next to your old beach house," Michael whispered. "Marcus mentioned it was for sale," I said. Apparently, the neighbors were worried about some developer turning it into modern condos. Amanda's hands were shaking. "But we can't afford." "You can with the money I've been setting aside from your loan payments," I said. "And with James as your partner, I know whatever you build there will respect the history and character of the neighborhood." "We were thinking," Michael said slowly, "about specializing in historical restoration, teaching others what we learned." I smiled, remembering their modern white box from a year ago. Life has a funny way of coming full circle. Later that evening, as we sat planning their new project, Amanda suddenly looked up. "Why didn't you just tell us you were selling the beach house? Before we, Would you have listened?" I asked gently. "Or would you have seen it as another example of my outdated thinking?" They exchanged glances, acknowledging the truth in my words. "Sometimes," I continued, "the most valuable lessons are the ones we learn the hard way. You needed to understand the cost of disrespecting other people's property, the value of craftsmanship, and the importance of asking before assuming." Michael reached over and squeezed my hand. "We learned a lot more than that, Mom." As the sun set, we looked through their preliminary sketches for their new beach house, a design that honored the past while building for the future. The modern furniture and stark white walls were gone from their plans, replaced by carefully considered craftsmanship and thoughtful details. "You know what's ironic?" Amanda said, looking at their plans. "A year ago, we thought we were too good for traditional things. Now we're going to spend our lives preserving them." I picked up the miniature house they'd made, this labor of love that represented not just their new skills, but their transformed understanding of value. Sometimes the most expensive mistakes leave us exactly where we need to be, and sometimes what looks like a costly lesson turns out to be the most precious gift of all. I replayed the voicemail for the third time, letting my son's words echo through my quiet living room. "Mom, look. Sarah and I want this Paris trip to be special. Just us. Your taste is a bit basic, and these are really exclusive places. You wouldn't be comfortable. Please don't try to join us like you did at our wedding. My card concierge is arranging everything." I glanced down at my desk, where a stack of banking documents lay open. Specifically, the ownership papers for Alight Global Banking, the very bank that issued the precious black card my son Thomas was so proud of. The one he'd been flashing around since his promotion last year. The same card I had authorized as CEO before stepping down to retire last month. My phone buzzed with a text from Thomas. "Did you get my message? Please respect our privacy this time." I thought back to their wedding last year, where I'd been seated in the back, far from the important guests. Sarah's mother had been at the head table, of course. After all, she had better connections and a more sophisticated style. If only they knew I bought the vineyard where they held their exclusive ceremony 2 days before the wedding, just to ensure everything went perfectly. Going to Paris next week. Sarah's Instagram post popped up on my phone. Only the best for us. Four Seasons, Georgie, Plaza Athene, #luxury life, #private access. I smiled, remembering the meetings I'd had with those hotels' management teams just last month. Amazing how many doors open when you're a major shareholder. My assistant's voice came through the intercom. Ms. Harrison, the Four Seasons Paris manager, is on line 1. Shall I tell him you're taking his call? Yes, Marie, and please get me Jen Luck from Plaza Athene afterward. I picked up the phone, switching to French, the language Thomas didn't know I spoke fluently. Philip. Yes, about that reservation for next week. An hour later, everything was arranged. I sat back, looking at the family photo on my desk. Thomas at age 8, beaming up at me with pure love, before money and status became his gods. My phone rang. It was Thomas. Mom, something's wrong with my card. It's being declined everywhere. Oh, I kept my voice neutral. How unfortunate. I'm trying to confirm our hotel reservations in Paris, the Four Seasons and Plaza Athene. This is humiliating. Those are very exclusive hotels, I said mildly, echoing his earlier words. Mom, I need to sort this out. Sarah's already told everyone about our luxury trip. Her mother will never let us hear the end of it if we have to cancel. That sounds stressful. Perhaps you should call your card concierge? I did. They said the authorization came from the top. Some CEO or board member must have made a mistake. I looked at the CEO nameplate on my desk, the one I'd never shown him. How frustrating when people in authority make decisions that affect us without consideration, isn't it? Mom, please, I don't have time for lessons. We're flying out next week. First-class tickets, private tours, Michelin restaurants. All those exclusive places that wouldn't suit my basic taste. There was a long pause. You heard that message. 3 times, actually. It was quite educational. Mom, his voice shifted, suspicion creeping in. Do you know something about my card being declined? Let's just say some mothers have better connections than they're given credit for. Another pause. What does that mean? It means, dear son, that perhaps it's time we had a conversation about respect, judgment, and making assumptions. Are you free for dinner tonight? I know a lovely French restaurant. Very exclusive. Though I'm not sure it would suit my basic taste. The silence on the other end was deafening. Mom, what exactly do you do? I smiled, picking up the elite global banking CEO nameplate. Why don't you come over and find out? Bring Sarah. And her mother too, if you'd like. I'm sure she'd be interested in hearing about my connections. You're enjoying this, aren't you? Let's just say some lessons about respecting your mother are best learned with a French accent. See you at 7? As I hung up, my assistant buzzed again. Ms. Harrison, the Plaza Athene manager, confirmed the presidential suite has been transferred to your name, and the Four Seasons is preparing the diplomatic suite for your arrival next week. Thank you, Marie, and the private jet? Fueled and ready whenever you'd like to depart. I looked at Thomas's wedding photo, where he and Sarah stood proudly in front of my vineyard, never questioning why they'd gotten such an exclusive venue at the last minute. Sometimes the most valuable lessons come with the highest price tags. At precisely 7, my doorbell rang. I opened it to find Thomas, Sarah, and surprisingly, Sarah's mother, Patricia, standing there. Their expressions ranged from confused to concerned to slightly hostile. Come in, I said, gesturing to my modest penthouse apartment, the one they'd always dismissed as quaint. Dinner will be served on the terrace. Mom, Thomas started, his voice strained. About the card situation. Let's eat first, I interrupted smoothly. Marie has prepared a lovely French menu. I believe it's similar to the one you were planning to enjoy at L'Arpege next week. Sarah's eyes widened. How did you know about our reservation? The same way I know it was just canceled, I replied, leading them to the terrace where a white-gloved server was pouring vintage champagne, along with all your other Paris arrangements. Patricia sniffed, adjusting her designer scarf. Thomas, I thought you said everything was handled by your exclusive concierge? It was, he muttered, looking increasingly uncomfortable. Until today. I gestured for them to sit at the elegantly set table. Tell me, Patricia, how long have you been a member at Le Cercle? She straightened, preening slightly. 10 years. It's the most exclusive social club in the city. Nearly impossible to get into. Yes, I agreed, sipping my champagne. I remember when we founded it. Such a charming little venture. The silence that followed was broken only by Sarah choking slightly on her drink. Founded? Patricia's voice had risen an octave. I nodded to the server to begin serving the first course. Though I rarely visit anymore, too busy with the banking operations, hotel acquisitions, that sort of thing. Thomas put down his fork. Mom, what's really going on? I pulled out my phone, showing them the Elite Global Banking app. Let's start with this card you're so proud of, the one that gives you such exclusive access. Their eyes fixed on the screen as I pulled up the corporate structure. That's impossible, Sarah whispered. Is it? I asked mildly. More impossible than assuming your mother-in-law was too basic to belong in your sophisticated world? Patricia was staring at me like she'd never seen me before. You're the Harrison? Of Harrison Global? Among other things. I smiled as the second course arrived. The foie gras is excellent, the chef trained at my restaurant in Paris. Thomas looked like he might faint. Your restaurant? One of them, along with several hotels, including, coincidentally, the ones you were planning to stay at next week. Sarah's face had gone pale. The reservations, they're really canceled. The presidential suites are now in my name, I confirmed. Along with the private dining rooms, spa appointments, and that lovely Sunset River cruise you booked. Mom, Thomas's voice cracked slightly. We didn't know. Clearly, I set down my glass. You didn't know because you never asked. You were too busy assuming I wouldn't fit into your world to realize I helped build it. Patricia was frantically scrolling through her phone, presumably Googling me. The vineyard, at the wedding. My vineyard, yes, though you seemed very proud taking credit for finding such an exclusive venue. The weight of their assumptions, their casual dismissals, their social climbing at my expense, it all hung heavy in the air between us. Why didn't you tell us? Sarah asked quietly. Why didn't you ask? I countered. Why was it so easy to believe your mother-in-law was beneath you? To leave that cruel voicemail? To constantly exclude me because I wasn't sophisticated enough? Thomas looked down at his plate, shame finally crossing his face. We've been horrible, haven't we? Horrible isn't the word I'd use, I said. Ungrateful, perhaps. Judgmental, certainly. But mostly just blind. Blind to the fact that real sophistication isn't about flashing credit cards or dropping names. It's about how you treat people. Patricia cleared her throat. Mrs. Harrison, I owe you an apology. Several, actually, I interrupted. But let's start with dinner, and then we can discuss your Paris plans. Our plans? Thomas looked up. But you canceled everything. I smiled, pulling out 4 first-class tickets. I canceled your arrangements, but I made new ones. For all of us. You're coming with us? Sarah asked, hesitantly. No, dear, you're coming with me. To my hotels, my restaurants, my Paris. The real one, not the one you were trying so hard to buy your way into. The rest of dinner was quieter, more thoughtful. As they left later that evening, Thomas turned back. Mom, I'm sorry. For everything. I know, I said. But actions speak louder than words. Let's see how you do in Paris. As their car pulled away, I looked out over the city lights. Sometimes the most valuable lessons about judgment come with a view of the Eiffel Tower. A week later, I watched Thomas, Sarah, and Patricia's faces as we stepped onto my private jet. Gone were their designer outfits chosen for show. They had opted for understated elegance instead. The first lesson had apparently sunk in. Mom, Thomas said quietly as we reached cruising altitude. The way you handled the hotel staff just now. They clearly adore you. Because I treat them like people, not servants, I replied. Money can buy service, but respect earns loyalty. During the flight, I shared stories about building my empire, the late nights, the risks, the failures they'd never known about. Sarah listened intently, her social media forgotten. All those times we thought you were just living simply, she said. You were actually working, weren't you? The best wealth is the kind you don't need to display, I answered, watching Patricia shift uncomfortably in her seat. Paris welcomed us with golden evening light. As we drove through the city, I pointed out small cafes and hidden gardens, places no concierge would ever recommend. This is where I learned business isn't just about profits, I told them. It's about creating experiences, preserving beauty, respecting tradition. At the Plaza Athénée, the staff greeted me with genuine warmth. Madam Harrison, your usual suite is ready. Thomas watched, amazed, as everyone from the doorman to the manager embraced me like family. Your mother, the manager told him in French, not realizing I had taught Thomas the language during our flight. She saved this hotel 10 years ago. Not just with money, with heart. That week transformed them. We dined at my restaurants, but also at tiny bistros where chefs shared their grandmother's recipes. We visited my properties, but also the hidden Paris I had discovered decades ago. I get it now, Thomas said one evening as we sat on a terrace overlooking the city. Why you never told us. We weren't ready to understand. Sarah nodded, her designer shopping bags notably absent. We thought luxury was about exclusion, about being better than others. And now, I asked. It's about appreciation, she said softly. About recognizing value in all its forms. Patricia had been unusually quiet throughout the trip. Finally, on our last night, she spoke. I've spent 10 years at Le Cercle, she said, trying to prove I belonged. You've spent decades building things that matter, never needing to prove anything. I smiled, remembering my own journey. The truly exclusive club is the one that welcomes everyone who understands that value isn't about price tags. As we flew home, I noticed subtle changes. Thomas helped the flight attendant with her tray. Sarah engaged the pilot in conversation about his family. Patricia admired the plane's craftsmanship rather than its luxury. The Paris trip we planned, Thomas said as we descended, would have been all photos and bragging rights. And this one? I asked. This one taught us that true sophistication is invisible, Sarah answered. It's in how you treat people, how you appreciate beauty, how you share success. Back home, I watched them unpack not just their bags, but their experiences. The designer labels and social media posts had been replaced by genuine stories and meaningful connections. Mom, Thomas said before leaving, thank you for teaching us the difference between having class and buying it. I hugged him, feeling the son I had raised return. Sometimes the most valuable things in life can't be bought at all. As they drove away, I smiled, knowing the next family dinner wouldn't be about impressing anyone. It would simply be about family, the most exclusive club of all.